Alright guys, I'm making a video to do a shout out to TB Fishing. He sent me some free stuff for guessing the weight of a fish that he caught, or I actually tied with another user or subscriber. So he sent us both some stuff. He sent Chug and Spook. I know this is in his video, but I just wanted to re-show it to you. This chatterbait jig, Strike King Pro model jig. It's got a rattle. He sent these sweet beavers to go with, to pair with the Strike King jig, and then also these hightail V&M hightail shad. I'm pumped about that. I'm actually going to put one of these on my other chatterbait that I have. It's a white-ish shad color. So anyways, thanks dude, I appreciate it. Y'all check out his channel. He catches more bigger fish than I do, so probably watch his channel more than you watch mine. But hopefully more people will start watching mine a little bit more, because I'm going to show you guys something cool today that I think I've never seen this before. So I think this is a new idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 7-inch Zoom Super Fluke, Magnum Super Fluke in smoking shad, and I am going to attach a stinger hook, a dress treble hook to the back of it, to give it a little bit better look, maybe a little bit more action, and then it should increase your hookups depending on, well, I guess it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what you're fishing for, bass, largemouth, smallmouth, striper. This stinger hook on the back should make it more or less impossible for a fish to hit this without getting hooked. So here's what you're going to need. Today, again, I'm using the 7-inch Magnum Super Fluke by Zoom in smoking shad color. You're going to need a pair of pliers. You're going to need your Super Fluke, obviously. You're going to need a large hook. I'm going to use this one in this particular instance. I'm not exactly sure what size it is, but it is weighted. It's totally your preference depending on how you want to fish it, weighted versus non-weighted. And yeah, so here we go. You're also going to need some line. In this case, I'm just using this Berkley Trilene Big Game. I don't recommend this line. It's not that good. It's got a lot of memory, and it's really not that strong. Just using it for demonstration purposes only. So to get started, here's what we're basically going to be doing, so you know. And I had one of these rigged up already. I just forgot to cut it off and bring it up here and show you. In the end, you're going to have this hook hooked into this just like you normally would. I went ahead and made my hole through the top so I wouldn't have to drag the large chunk of lead through there. So I can just poke the eyelet through there just like this. I can poke it through and tie it off. But anyways, in a nutshell, this is what you're going to have. You're going to have this. Somebody just called me right in the middle of my video, so just to recap the point I was trying to make before someone called me was this line that's attached to your main hook, we're going to thread through the tail of this Super Fluke, and attached to the end will be this stinger or dress treble hook, and it's basically, the goal is to have it flush with the end of that bait. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and hopefully I'll do it correctly. It is a little bit tricky getting your knot tied so you don't have a bunch of excess line in between the end of your fluke and your dress treble. You want that to be as flush as you can make it. So to get this line threaded through your fluke, you're going to make a special tool, and you may not really even have to make this. It might be something you already have laying around. That thing you might already have laying around would be a sewing needle, which I cannot locate. So before I do that though, I went ahead and I just yanked the tail of this Super Fluke off. Just don't really see the need to have this and the dress treble on the back of this thing, so I went ahead and just pulled that off real quick. So the tool that you can make to thread your line through the tail of this Super Fluke, you can just use a small panfish hook. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pliers and I'm actually going to straighten this hook. Hopefully. I already had one made, but I realized that the problem was it was too short for this fluke, because it's a very large fluke. Well, it's 7 inches. I believe you can get 9-inch flukes. You want to get that hook as straight as you can, and it's totally up to you if you leave the pointed part. I'm going to go ahead and flatten that barb. Just because I don't really want to tear up my Fluke, threading this through. So now I've got a pretty straight needle-like tool to thread that line through. So what you're going to want to do is take your line and from your main hook and just, I've already done this once, so I need to redo this. That was when I realized that my tool that I've already made for my other one was too short for this Fluke. So take your line, tie it off to your needle here, and make sure that you get it tied off so that the line stays attached to it, obviously, as you're pulling it through. And just a couple shoelace knots will work, but you also want to be able to detach it from your tool so that you can tie it off to your stinger hook. So I'm just going to use one little shoelace knot here. And there we go. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to thread it through. I'm actually going to start about right here on my Fluke, and I'm just going to insert the tool, the needle, and just try to follow that little crease right down the middle all the way out the back. And this tool is working flawlessly. And then boom, there we go. We've come out. We want to be able to get a hold of that. I'm going to use my pliers so I don't stab myself, and just gently work that tool through, and there's my line. Okay? So now, the other thing that you're going to want to do is at this point, go ahead and hook this up. Go ahead and have this rigged, and I'm going to show you why. So I've already made my hole here. I've got that rigged. I'm going to go ahead and rig this just exactly the way I'd have it if I were fishing it. Well. Okay. So there we go. I've got some excess line, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that all the way through. And then there you go. That's essentially what you're going to have left. And the line might poke through a little bit down here, but I don't think that's really going to make a big difference. But now, so this is how much line I have to work with to tie my dress treble off with. And again, the goal is to have this flush with the end of your bait. So that's basically what you're going to have. Or that's what it's going to look like. So this is the tricky part. So I can go ahead and detach my little tool. Don't lose that. Again, somebody calls me. This happens to me all the time. I'm trying to make a video and I get like 50 million phone calls. We're going to finish this. Here we go. So I've got my dress treble. I've got my excess line through the tail of this that I threaded through using my tool. And I'm going to go ahead and tie this off. Again, this is for demonstration purposes only. The line that you use from your main hook to your stinger hook is totally up to you. The hook, the knot that you use, you may be somewhat limited because of the way this is set up. So again, demonstration purposes only. I'm going to show you how to try and get this as flush as you can. That line's a little bit curly-cued, so I wanted to get rid of it. So anyways, let's go ahead and get this threaded through here. Now, at this point, you can obviously see that I need about this much line. There's my hook, and it's flush. So here's the tricky part. Getting this tied off so that you have this flush with the end of your Fluke. If there's, like an 1/8 of an inch line left over between the end of your Fluke and that dress treble, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, but any more than that, and I think it might make a difference in the appearance and the way that this bait works and overall. So you probably want to try and get this as flush as you can. So here's what I'm going to attempt to do. I want to pinch the line and the dress treble. I'm actually going to give myself a little bit of just a teeny gap to work with there, and I'm actually going to pull the Fluke down on the line to give myself room to make my knot. And you want to hold that treble in place on your line where you want it, because keep in mind, again, I'm pulling that Fluke down so then I can thread it back out, and I'll show you. I want to pull the Fluke down the line So now I can tie my knot. And I'm just using a fisherman's knot because in this particular instance, this is going to be the easiest knot to tie to get this tied off. And again, line and knot and all that stuff is total preference to you. It just depends on how you want it. Again, keep that fluke pulled down so you can get your knot going here. And then I'm going to thread this through, and hopefully in the end we have a beautiful actually I'm going to pull the tag end to get rid of too much excess, which I'm afraid we might have, but again, demonstration purposes only. Okay, so here's what we have at the end of our thing here. I do have a little bit too much excess line, which I'll show you. So look, if I pull this out, there's the excess right there. I've got darn near, that's probably 2/3 of an inch. It's not what we want, but to fix that on your bait, if that happens to you when you get it tied off, simply take your fluke, stretch it, and then you can see where that excess line goes. It goes there. If I'm throwing this in the water with a clear or more or less invisible line, I don't think this is going to make a difference. But best case scenario, in a perfect world, we would have this tied off so that your hook is flush with the end. This isn't a factor, that's not hanging down. But if this happens and you throw this and you use this bait with it just like this, with this line hanging down, it doesn't make a difference when you go to cast, because the dress treble does not go anywhere. It doesn't move away from the fluke. Obviously, if you caught a fish and he was, hooked on this one, then it would pull the line through, and then you would just be attached like that. But again, if this happens to you, it's pretty tricky to get that tied up flush. Just stretch the fluke down the line, and it'll take that excess line and put it here. I don't think that's going to make a difference, but this is the end product, and I think this is going to give you a look that the fish haven't seen before. So that is my fluke mod, and I'm sure you guys will do a better job of getting this tied up flush with the end of the fluke so you don't have that excess line. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Please like, please subscribe, and check out TB Fishing and watch his videos too. Have a great day.